Barakata Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem B'chak Wadash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is No Place Found in Heaven, with a question mark at the end. In other words, what does that mean? Because this is a very controversial topic and scripture when it comes to these plantation Christians out here, you know, that teach that Satan and his angels were kicked out of heaven and so on and so forth, blah blah blah, you know, and that whole fairy tale, Jewish fable, wives fable, you know, tired old demonic doctrine that they teach. So Lord's willing, this lesson we're going to go through that because this is important to know, because this is something that's about to come, you know, and seeing all of the prophecies that are happening on the planet Earth. One thing that's really starting to take root in the earth right now is the sighting, the evident sighting of these so-called UFOs, which are the chariots of the Lord. And when the chariots really open up to do their thing, it's going to really be something. It's going to be a wonder and an amazement, and you know, just how spectacular it's going to be. And these devils know that they have no defense against them. They know that they've said that the technology that these so-called aliens possess is hundreds, if not thousands of years more advanced than these devils, you know, and they have no clue or no idea. And one thing with Esau is, since he was given the sword, anytime a threat comes up from a foreign or domestic, their whole mindset is finding some type of apparatus or weapon to fight that threat so that they can defend themselves. But they're going to be in for a rude awakening when they come against Yahushai and the angels of the Lord, which is the Most High's army, Yahweh's army. So I'm just going to read that part in Revelation 12. Then we're going to start at the first verse just to get it going. This is Revelation chapter 12 and verse 7. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels and prevailed not, neither was their place found anymore in heaven. Now what is that talking about? That's not talking about the spiritual demon Satan. That's talking about Yahushai, Michael the archangel, and the other angels in the chariots fighting against Esau and his military. It has nothing to do with the spiritual demon Satan. The spiritual demon Satan is in total order. The wicked spirits on the left-hand side are in total order with the Most High. The Most High created both sides. He created evil. He created the good. You know, he said that he even sent evil angels against those Egyptians. And when we read the story of Ahab and Jehoshaphat, I believe it was King Jehoshaphat that was with him when they were about to go fight. And Micaiah, which was the prophet, the righteous prophet at the time, when he saw heaven opened up, he saw the Most High sitting, and he saw the right-hand angels and the left-hand angels. So there's perfect order up in the heavens. And there's a reason why certain angels are sitting on the right hand and certain angels are sitting on the left hand. Because the Lord created both sides. He has perfect balance. You know, so that whole nonsense about Satan being cast out of heaven with a third of the angels, this is a fairy tale based off of things that people don't understand, used by those that cunningly devise these fables in order to put fear in the people so that they can send the money and give lands and, you know, houses and all that, so that the church can get rich. Because it even says that the whole story of hell began with the Valley of Hinnom, which was a garbage dump in Jerusalem, or outside the walls, and there they burned their trash. It was said that the children were sacrificed to Molech there, and in some cases criminals were brought there for judgment. So when Yahushua used that Gehenna in the New Testament, he was using it as a scene of future judgment, which is going to be the nuclear destruction and devastation that's going to take this place out. So now what we're going to do is let's go to the first verse in Revelation 12, and let's go through it, see how many verses we can get through, and then go to a couple of other precepts and give the sense of this. Revelation 12:1, and there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. This woman represents Mary. I'm sorry, that was Satan. This woman represents the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel, because the Roman Catholic Church teaches that this is Mary, you know, the Queen of Heaven. Pretty much, they have a crown on her head. This is not dealing with Mary. That was Satan. That a slip of the tongue made me say that. So this woman here represents the nation of Israel, and the 12 tribes represent the 12 stars represent the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. Now, at the time when this was written, there were predominantly 3 of the tribes left in Israel. All right. It says, and she being with child cried, travailing in birth and pain to be delivered, because at the time when this was written, you know, the Israelites were catching hell underneath the Roman Empire. And this is why there were so many revolts from the BC era into the AD era, because of the heavy taxation that the Romans were waging upon the people that they had conquered. You know, so it was no different for the nation of Israel. So they were waiting for the salvation of the nation of Israel. And when some of them perceived that Yahushua, who is the Messiah, when they perceived that, they thought that the kingdom of heaven was going to come right not too long after that, because once the scriptures speak about them, when the Messiah came, he would bring judgment upon these heathens and deliver the nation of Israel. All right. So it says, and there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads. Now, if the people would sit down and just read, you know, because it's plain, if they would read about the 7 heads and 10 horns in this particular dragon, this particular beast, they would know that this particular beast, this particular dragon, is a representation of different empires and their kings or their rulers, because it tells you that in the book of Revelation, the 17th chapter. So if that being the case, why would you equate that with Satan and his angels when it's letting you know what the 7 heads and the 10 horns represent? You know, with the crowns on their heads, this beast, this great red dragon. But the problem is, most people don't read, and when they do read, like King David put a curse on Jake, two-thirds of Jake, and just Jake in general that are not part of the elect, that are not part of the house of David, that should be for their welfare should become a trap unto them. And that's why when they try to read it, they have no idea what it's talking about. All right. So this beast, this great red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, is pretty much a representation of all of the empires of Esau, beginning with the Greeks. You had the Greeks, the Romans, the French, the Spanish, Germania Major, Germania Minor, and then you had Great Britain. Let me make sure I had them all right. The Greeks, the Romans, the Spanish, the French, Germania Major, Germania Minor, and Great Britain. So those are the 7 heads that is a representation of this particular beast. And the reason why I said it was red, because Esau is red. Right? So it goes on to say, and his tail drew the 3rd part of the stars of heaven. So we read that it was the woman had a crown of 12 stars. So if the woman had a crown of 12 stars, and it says that the tail of this particular beast drew the third part of the stars of heaven, that's only 3 stars. So what is this talking about? When you go back in the history, you know that the nation of Israel was split into two. You know, you had the southern kingdom and you had the northern kingdom. The southern kingdom had 2 tribes, which was Judah and Benjamin. And then, you know, the priests, which were the Levites, they were scattered among all the tribes. But what happened was there was a decree to where Jeroboam sent all of the Levite priests out of there. So they went back to the kingdom of the southern kingdom, kingdom of Judah. So therefore, making up 3 tribes, and that's why you have predominantly Judah, Benjamin, and Levi there in Jerusalem, in Israel, in those surrounding areas at that particular time. You did have a sprinkling of the other tribes because some of the tribes did go back with the southern kingdom, but for the most part, it was 3 major tribes. So that's why I said that the this great red dragon, his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. As soon as it was born, and pretty much this is when the that devil Herod the Great, as they call him, you know, found out that the king of Israel was being born, and the wise men from the east, which was more than 3, it was many wise men from the east. When they came, they were inquiring about the child that was born, that was to be king in Israel, and because they saw his star up in the heavens, which was an actual chariot. And when they saw it, they inquired. They came to Herod, they asked Herod, and Herod got nervous, and so did the Israelites that were with him. They were all nervous because, they were troubled because Herod was the king of Israel at the time, but he wasn't the true king. So he inquired because he wanted to kill Yahushai, but the spirit came to the wise men and told them not to go back to Herod, to that devil, and tell him anything. So after 2 years, Herod figured that he was mocked. So that's why he made that decree that in that region in Jerusalem, all the male child from 2 years and under should be destroyed. And that's why there was a great lamentation for the children back then, because this dragon was stood over, to devour the child as soon as it was born. But that's where the Lord told Joseph to take Mary and the child and go down into Egypt until that whole situation passed. And once Herod was dead, his son took over. The Lord told Joseph to go back to Bethlehem, in Jerusalem. But when he found out that Herod's son was alive, he went and stayed up in Nazareth, up there in the regions of Galilee. And the reason why that happened was because that was the Lord's way of leaving a stumbling block. Because if he would have went back to Jerusalem and to Bethlehem, then they would have said, "Oh well, this is Yahushua, the son of Joseph, and he's from Bethlehem." It says here, it's the documentation, and they would have been like, "Okay, then that's the Messiah." So the Lord threw a monkey wrench in there, right? So it says, verse 5, and she brought forth a man child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and that man child is Yahushua. And her child was caught up unto the Most High and to his throne, because that was what had to go down. And it was a chariot that came to deliver Yahushua, to bring him back before the Ancient of Days. And that's what when we read in Daniel's, it says that the Son of Man was presented before the Ancient of Days, because he had received, or he had conquered and did what he was supposed to do, and he was there to receive the benefits, the glory, and the reward that the Most High promised him. All right? It says, and the woman fled into the wilderness. Now, why did this woman, Israel, flee into the wilderness? Because there was an uprising, or a besieging of the Roman Empire against Israel. And Yahushua told the people that this was going to happen. And he told them this like 30 some odd years, before it actually even happened. Probably about a good 36, 37 years before it actually even happened. But they didn't take heed. But he did say that those that understand, when you see Jerusalem compassed with armies, know that the desolation thereof is nigh. That the abomination that maketh desolate is going to come in and destroy the temple and all that. And there shall not be one stone left upon another that shall not be thrown down. So those that took heed and understood, they left. And that's why there was a big scattering all over, into Europe, into Asia Minor, into, all of those different regions, down into the interiors of so-called Africa, more than likely, into Arabia, because you have Arabia right there, right next to Israel, all in those regions. Why? Because there was a big slaughter going on of the Israelites. So it says, and the woman fled into the wilderness, which the wilderness represents, predominantly so-called Africa, the land of Ham, but it, also represents some of the other places where they ran, but it mainly represents so-called Africa or the land of Ham. Why? Because it says where she hath a place prepared of the Most High, because from the so-called interiors of Africa, or the interiors of so-called Africa, was where the bulk of the slaves were brought to the so-called Americas in the so-called triangular, slave trade, or the transatlantic slave trade. All right. So, and the woman fled into the wilderness, so-called Africa, where she had the place prepared of the Most High, because eventually, after they stayed up in there, which shows you how long this prophecy was, because it took about 1,500 years before Esau actually started bringing the southern kingdom over here to this side of the world. And they were scattered all throughout South America, Central America, the islands, and so-called North America. They were all over the place. All right. It says that they should feed her there 1,203 score days, which this 1,203 score days represents 3.5 years, which are prophetic years, because these years it was 350 years from the time the bulk of the slaves were brought here, somewhere around 1619, 1620, all the way to like 1969, 1970, when the truth started really taking root, out here. And this is what took place, So it says, and there was war in heaven. So then after all of this happened, then it jumps to the future, right? And it says, and there was war in heaven. Now, see, this is why you have to know and look up words, right? It said there was war in heaven, right? So they said there was war in heaven. Well, let me read the whole thing. It says, and there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels. So he said, what? Book closed, because Michael and his angels, that's the heavenly host. And then you have the dragon, which is Satan, and his angels, So when we look up that word heaven, right, in Revelation 12 and 7, the word there for heaven is Uranus, right? It says the vaulted expanse of the sky with all things visible in it. Then it says the universe, the world. Then it says the aerial heavens or sky, the region where the clouds and the tempest gather, where thunder and lightning are produced. And then they have other definitions for the word heaven, but you have one definition for the word heaven is what? Sky. Sky. So when Yahushua, Michael the archangel, and the chariots come, they're going to be where? They're going to be in the sky. Just like what happened when Yahushua when Yahushua left, the disciples were doing what? They were looking upward, because they saw the cloud or the chariot that took Yahushua. They saw Yahushua being beamed up into the chariot, and two angels standing on each side. So the same way that happened, that's what's going to happen when when Yahushua and the angels come back. There's going to be war going on because you have something that Esau calls World War III, which is the War of Armageddon. And the way wars are fought now are not like in the ancient world. The way wars were fought in the ancient world was hand-to-hand combat with swords and shields and, you know, and bow and arrows and lances and all that different stuff, daggers. But the way wars are fought now are fought by missiles. They're fought by planes shooting down each other, dropping missiles on certain sites of the enemy's land. So when Yahushua and the angels come back, the chariots are going to be in the heavens. That's why it says, every eye shall see him. Let's get there real quick. Revelation chapter 1 and verse 7. It says, behold, he cometh with clouds, which are what? Chariots. And every eye shall see him, and they also which pierced him, and all kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him, and even so be true. Because you have these flat earthers that talk about that, well, it says, every eye shall see him. So that means the earth is flat for every eye to see it. Well, it says he's coming with clouds, plural. So that means all the skies, wherever the earth is going to be covered with these chariots. There's going to be many chariots. You're going to have the fathership, but then you're going to have many other chariots also with the angels. You see? So they're going to cover the whole compass of the earth. And at that time, when this happens, you're already going to have World War III in full bloom. So you're going to have fighter jets of the Russians, fighter jets of the Chinese, fighter jets of the Japanese, fighter jets of the so-called of the Ishmaelites, fighter jets of the Pakistanis, and fighter jets of the East Indians, and fighter jets of the Hamites, and fighter jets of the United States, fighter jets of the land of Israel. All these different jets, all these different airplanes, so to speak, fighter jets up in the heavens fighting against each other. And what they're going to do is they're going to stop in the middle of what they're doing. When they see Yahushua and the angels, they're going to be like, oh shit. And what's going to happen is the battle that they're having with each other is going to stop, and they're going to turn around and focus their energy on fighting against the Lord and the angels. And they're going to lose miserably. Let's get there real quick. Let's go to the book of 2nd Ezra chapter 13. And this is Esau is scared of this. He's scared of this. He is terrified. That man, that devil is so scared that they're trying to figure out ways to deal with this problem. Because it is a problem. Now, usually, you know, the chariots, when Esau shoots at them, they move. Fucking with Esau. No, you can't catch us, man. We the gingerbread man, man. That's a little joke. But in this particular case, there were 4 objects in the sky, which are chariots dripping something out of some substance out of them. And Esau launched a missile, and the chariot stayed in place, and the missile hit, right? Blew up. And I know in Esau's mind, it's like, yes, finally we got these. And then all of a sudden, when the smoke started clearing, the chariot was still there. It was still dripping down whatever it was dripping down. So it was at that moment that Esau realized that they fucked up. That's a lot here. You know, if Esau would have went to the police, none of this would have happened. Inside joke. But yeah, at that particular time in the fight, they realized that they done fucked up. You know what? All of their horrors and their fears were how does that saying go? Were realized, because they said, we knew that their technology was great and far superior than ours, but now we even know even more that we gave it our best, and we couldn't do nothing to it. It was just like an amoeba hitting Mike Tyson in the jaw with all his might, and nothing happened. See? So these devils are in some serious troubled times. And they notice, you know, and they are losing sleep. So let's go here, and then we're gonna go segue back to Revelation, but I want to hit another precept before we go to Revelation. All right, so it says this is 2 Ezra 13 and 3. And I beheld, and lo, that man, which is Yahushua, waxed strong with thousands of heaven. We're reading the same account that we're reading in Revelation 12, and the same account is in Revelation 19, and the same account to a certain degree is in Isaiah 14. Not as detailed as the other ones, but similar. You know, it says, and when he turned his countenance to look, all things trembled that were seen under him. Because when he comes back, you got to understand the magnificence and the sheer horror. Hey, because when the Most High would appear, you know, back then, people would tremble, people were shaken because of the splendor, the glory, the power, the majesticness, if that's even a word. It said, and whensoever the voice went out of his mouth, all they burned that heard his voice, like as the earth faileth when it feeleth the fire. Yeah, because Yahweh ain't going to lift up no sword. He ain't going to, you know, take up a lance or a spear and then cock it back like this as he's coming down, you know, and then just throw the lance and fuck Esau up. No. It's going to be lasers from the chariots coming down, you know, blasting. They're going to blast that fool. All right. They're going to blast that fool. All right. So, yep, like the brother said, like Independence Day. That's right. And that's a good movie to watch if you haven't watched it. You know, watch that movie. The first hour was spectacular, phenomenal. But then after that, you know, when they started, you know, beating the chariot, that was all bullshit. And then that whatever. Anyway, you got to watch the movie. You know, but the first hour is very good, especially when that big chariot came out of that cloud with the fire and falling on itself, and people were like, "Oh shit!" You know. It says, and after this I beheld, and lo, there was gathered together a multitude of men. Wait a minute, hold up, whoa. Didn't it say that the dragon and his angels fought? We're reading the same account, but in this account is letting us know that the dragon, it doesn't say dragon, but we read in Revelation 12 that Michael and his angels fought against the dragon and his angels. We're reading here how Yahushua, which is the head, then you have Michael the archangel, they come in to fight with the angels and the chariots, and then they come in to fight what? It says, and after this I beheld, and lo, there was gathered together a multitude of men out of number. Why did it say out of number? Because you have something called Armageddon. Har-Magadwan. Har is mount or mountain. You could say hill also. Mountain. Then you got Ma is of or from. Then you have God, which is Gad, which is troop. And the one at the end makes it plural. So Har-Magadwan, mountain of the troops. Why? Because there's going to be an innumerable amount of troops that are going to be amassed in that area, and you're going to have a whole host of troops flying in the air, these different air forces of these different militaries of the world, and they're going to be fighting against each other, and they're going to stop, and they're going to try to go fight against the Lord, and they're going to get obliterated. And after this I beheld, and lo, there was gathered together a multitude of men out of number from the four winds of the heaven to subdue the man that came out of the sea. See? Because they saw the threat, they spotted the threat, and their whole thing is, we got to do something about this threat. So they went to fight against it. So that's why it says that Michael and his angels fought against the dragon and his angel. See? It's not talking about the spiritual demon Satan. It says, but I beheld, and lo, he had graven himself a great mountain, meaning Yahushua graved himself a great mountain, was the chariot, and flew up upon it. So he was on the chariot. But I would have seen the region or place whereout the hill was graven, and I could not, because he didn't find a place on the earth where this big gigantic mountain was missing from, so that he can identify where it came from, because it didn't come from the earth. It came from the heavens, the actual fourth dimension. And after this I beheld, and lo, all they which were gathered together to subdue him were sore afraid, and yet there's fight. Because imagine that, you know, you have these military men that are bold, they'll fight anybody, they'll get mixed up with anybody. But when you have something that's supernatural and they have to fight against it, they're like scared. It's one thing to fight a man, but it's another thing to fight an angelic being. But the Lord's going to put the spirit on them to still fight anyway. And lo, as he saw the violence of the multitude that came, why was it violence? Because they're coming to attack, shooting missiles and bullets and all kind of stuff, right? Of the multitude that came, he neither lifted up his hand, nor held sword, nor any instrument of war, but only I saw that he sent out of his mouth as it had been a blast of fire, and out of his lips a flaming breath, and out of his tongue he cast out sparks and tempests. So that's, if you want to read more about that, read the book of Habakkuk, the 3rd chapter, where it speaks about the lasers coming out and decimating Esau. See, these devils, they have technology, but nothing in comparison to what the chariots have. You know? It says, and they were all mixed together, the blast of fire, the flaming breath, and the great tempest, and fell with violence upon the multitude which was prepared to fight, and burned them up every one, so that upon a sudden of an innumerable multitude, nothing was to be perceived, but only dust and smell of smoke. When I saw this, I was afraid. So when Yahushua sent that blast, them lasers, and destroyed the multitude, there was nothing left. So what happened? He knocked them all out of the sky, obliterated them out of the sky. So what happened? They were gone. They went from being in formation, shooting whatever they had, whatever weapons they had, to being obliterated. So they were no more found up in the sky. That's what we read here in Revelation 12 and 7. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not, neither was their place found anymore in heaven. Why? Because Yahushua knocked all of those planes out of the heavens. So they were gone. So you saw an innumerable multitude of planes and jets coming against the Lord, and all of a sudden when he smoked them, there was nothing there. So they were gone. There was no place. They were there no more. When we read the word for heaven, it spoke about the sky. Because this heaven that is talking about in Revelation 12 is not talking about the third heaven or the fourth dimension, when the Most High and the angels dwell. It's talking about the heavens up in the sky, where planes fly, where you have clouds. It spoke about clouds and London and Titan, inside joke, thunder and lightning, where it's all made. That's where the planes are at. That's where the planes are going to be when Yahushua comes back. Now you have this movie called Saving Private Ryan, and at the end you had planes flying over at the very end of the battle, and Matt Damon, which was Private Ryan, which they were supposed to save, he said those are something bunker buster or whatever he was called, and Tom Hanks said, he said, no, those are angels on our shoulders, because the planes are Esau's angels, because the angels are set up for what? For protection, for bodyguards. So these planes are Esau's bodyguards, hence they're angels, they're guardian angels. So they trust in that. They trust in their weaponry, because the jets and helicopters and all that is an extension of Esau's sword. So that's their protection. Just like the angels are our protection. They hedge us in. Their hedging or protection is carnal. So when Yahushua and the angels come back, they're going to obliterate dragon or Esau and his angels, which are these jets. All right. Now let's go from there and let's go to Isaiah 14. And we're going to come back to that again. Let's go to Isaiah 14. And in the intro, I was going to start at the first verse, but I'm going to kind of jump around a little bit just so we can get through some of this. But this is Isaiah 14, and I start at 3. I really want to start around 9, but I'll start at 3 just to paint the picture of what's going on. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall give thee rest from thy sorrow, and from thy fear, and from the hard bondage wherein thou was made to serve. So in other words, when the Lord is about to deliver us from our captivity, being here in America, Babylon the Great, these things are going to be happening. It says that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon. So what is the subject matter? A proverb being taken up by the prophets against the king of Babylon. All right? And against his forces, because the prophets prophesied against many great kingdoms of war and pestilence, so on and so forth, right? So it says that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon and say, how have the oppressors ceased? The golden city ceased. So the subject matter here is the ruler and pretty much the people of this Babylonian Empire, which was not talking about ancient Babylon. This is talking about modern day Babylon, which is America, Babylon the Great. It says, the Lord hath broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the ruler. So he broke their power, their rulership, their status here on earth, their heavenly, lofty state that they're living in. It says, he who smote the people in wrath of the continual stroke. Remember it says that who can make war with the beast? It said, he that ruled the nations in anger is persecuted and none hindereth. Yeah, so now you're suffering persecution and no one is stopping that persecution from happening. No one is helping you out of this situation that you're in and that you're going to find yourself in once the Lord starts bringing you down. It says, the whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing. Yeah, because once these devils go down, the whole earth is going to be at rest. Because as long as this devil is ruling, there is no rest here. You know, it says when the wicked bears rule, the people mourn. There's a constant state of mourning on the planet earth because of these devils. It says, yea, the fir tree rejoice at thee, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since thou art laid down, no feller has come up against us. Yeah, because once this devil goes down, even the trees and the grass and the, you know, the flowers and, you know, the vegetation of the earth is going to be able to rest. Because under this devil, everything is oppressed. From the trees to the vegetation to the earth. And this is why the earth is coming against this devil, because he done overworked the earth. He done abused the earth. And the earth is breaking down. It says, hell from beneath, or death from beneath, is moved for thee to meet thee at thy coming. It stirreth up the dead for thee. The dead are a representation of these other nations. Even all the chief ones of the earth, which proves that it's talking about the nations. It hath raised up all, from their thrones all the kings of the nations. Yeah, because they're going to eventually come against you. And even your own allies among your own European devil Edomite kind are going to come against you, because it's prophecy. It says, all they shall speak and say unto thee, art thou also become weak as we? Art thou become weak? Art thou become like unto us? Yeah, because your power is going to be broken, like we read earlier in this chapter. It says, thy pomp is brought down to the grave, meaning that lofty, pompous, arrogant, proud spirit that you devils have is going to be brought down. Because you're really puffed up, man. You really are the most proud on the planet. But the Lord is going to break that pride, and the nations are going to see it. It says, and the noise of thy vials, meaning this lousy music that you have, is going to be brought down also. The worm is spread under thee, and the worms cover thee. Now the worms are a representation of corrosion. And this society, the infrastructure, is corroded because it was only supposed to last for about 50 years. And when it was only made for a certain amount of vehicles to be on it. Today you have 100 times more, or 200 times more, or 300 times more traffic on these roads than there should be. So the roads, that's why they can't keep up with the construction. Every time you go anywhere, you always see construction on these roads, and they can't fix them fast enough. Plus, they don't have the money to fix everything. So it says, how art thou, now it goes on to say, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer? So how have you fallen from this lofty state? Because when you get up in there, in those jets, the Lord's going to destroy you. And once you're destroyed and your military is destroyed, then you are going to be brought down from that high, proud, arrogant position of ruling over the whole planet Earth. And people get caught up because Lucifer is not a personal name. Although they have it personalized here with a capital L. When you go back to the Spanish and when you go back to the Latin, the word Lucifer there is in small case, all small letters. Because Lucifer is not a personal name. Lucifer just simply means enlightened ones, or old day star. Coming from the Hebrew Hayalal, or from the Greek Yosforos, which is carrier of the light, which is a description of the illuminated ones of this society, which are the higher ups, the so-called international banking families who hold the light of this world at this time because they're in power. That's all it means. That's all it means. So it says, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Illuminati? Because who are the ones that are ruling this society? The international banking families, going back to the so-called Illuminati and whatever faction they come in. Because what they did was they got rid of the term Illuminati and they went under different names. All throughout, But just because you change your name doesn't mean that you're not this person, this Lucifer, And to show you how deep that term is, Lucifer, you have something called luciferase, right? Which is what? Injected into the body. And what does luciferase do? It's a substance that glows in the body. Now, why does it glow? Because that's what the term Lucifer means. Iosforos, or Hayala, which is light bearer or light carrier. And they have the light because they know what's going on, and they still have the majority of the planet blinded. So the Lord's going to take them out of that lofty position. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nation? See? And how did they do that? By dropping bombs on people, by invading them, by going into their land under the guise of helping them out, lending them money through the IMF, knowing that the amount of money that they're going to lend them, those nations are not going to be able to pay back. Therefore, being able to get up in there, take over their infrastructure, take over their resources, take over their economy, and become richer and make the common folk there even their life even harder than what they already were. So they weakened the nations. They didn't help build the nations up. Whenever you hear these devils talking about helping somebody, there's ulterior motives to it. And the ones that get helped are pretty much, the leaders of those people that sell out to the American government. They're the ones that do good. Meanwhile, the rest of the people, the populace, they get shitted on, especially the indigenous of those lands. They get the worst treatment. They don't get shit. And the money that goes in there to build up the infrastructure is given to corporations that are owned by the international banking families. So pretty much the money that's funneled in is funneled right back out through the corporations of the ones that gave the money in the first place. Tell me it's not a rigged game. It says, for thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. And did not they ascend into heaven? Yes. You got your space shuttles out there. You got your space stations out there. You got your satellites out there. You got your planes and your helicopters. You know? And whatever else, other madness you got out there that is flying through the heavens. It says, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of the Most High. And you did that. When you set up your satellites and your space stations out there, it says, I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation, which are the Israelites, in the sides of the north, or North America. And you're sitting on us here. Because you so-called emancipated the slaves, which just transferred them from the hands of the slaves down in the south, slave masters in the south, to your hands. Through legislation. Trickery. It says, I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. And that's what they're doing, because they're going to be like the Most High, they say, because the Most High has what? He has his angels in chariots in the heavens, flying around. So Esau wants to be just like them. It says, yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, meaning to death, to the sides of the pit, because you're going to be brought down, and your place is no more going to be found at all in heaven. Now, I forgot to look up this particular word. Let's go to the Isaiah 14. I want to show you something. Isaiah 14 and 12, right? Isaiah 14 and 12. And I want to look up that word heaven. How art thou fallen from heaven? We looked up the word heaven. It's the word Shema or Shemayim. Shemayim breaks down to Shah is that which pertains to. And then the Mayim is waters. It's plural for waters, because water is plural. So Shemayim, that which pertains to the waters. What are the waters? The elements. Now it says heaven, heavens, sky, visible heavens, sky, as abode of the stars, as the visible universe, the sky, atmosphere, etc. Then it goes on to speak about the heavens where the Most High dwells in. You know, and to a certain degree, they're right on those terms. It just depends on where you apply those terms in Scripture. And in this Scripture here, in the book of Isaiah 14 and 12, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, it's talking about how have you fallen from the sky. From that lofty position you were in, just like Capernaum. That city was lofty. They had riches. They were living it up. They were pompous. And the Lord told them, you're exalted to heaven, but you're going to be brought down to hell. Meaning you're going to be brought down to a lower state, to a low condition. Because hell is either the grave or a condition played out on planet Earth. Slavery is hell. Anytime you are in debt or in want of something, you're in hell. Because you can't get things at your beck and call. Now the rich man, Esau, they fared sumptuously every day. There's not anything that they can't get. It says they have more than heart can wish. But the poor, the people, especially the Israelites, are catching hell. Because we're in hell. It's a low condition. There's no such place as a place called hell that people are sent to burn forever. Hell are two conditions. It's either the grave when you die and they bury you in the earth, or a condition where people are in such a deplorable state that they're in hell. Because there's nothing that they could do. They have no solutions. They're living paycheck to paycheck. They're barely surviving. That's hell. They're subjected to live in places that are broken down. They're subjected to live, you know, on top of each other. So where you can hear in different parts, if you live on the second floor You can hear the neighbor upstairs on the 3rd floor having sex with his woman. Then you can hear this neighbor on your right side on your floor having sex with his woman. Then you can hear the neighbor on your left side on the 2nd floor having sex with his woman. Then you can hear the neighbor on the 1st floor underneath you having sex with his woman. This is fucking hell, man. It ain't supposed to be like that. But this is the condition we were brought to. But the Lord is going to deliver us out of it. So going back to Isaiah 14 and 16, they that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, is this the man? So we were talking about Lucifer, right? Is this the man that made the earth to tremble and did shake kingdoms? And that's exactly what Esau did. They made the world to tremble. They did shake kingdoms. They dropped bombs on different places on the earth. Got the people shook. Putting out false information on these so-called diseases or pandemics, you know, viruses, and having the people shook and scared and nervous. If you were a righteous people, why would you have to do all those things? So that's what no place found in heaven means. When we read back in Revelation 12, let's go back to Revelation 12. Let's read this, and I got a couple other precepts and we can close out. Revelation 12 and 7. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels and prevailed not, because Esau is not going to win. Neither was a place found anymore in heaven, because your planes, which are your angels, are going to be knocked out of the skies, because that's your protection. And after watching these different videos of these breakdowns that we've done, if you can't get it, you still have questions, well, I don't know, what about, then you know what, move on. This ain't for you. Because there's been too many breakdowns of all of these different false doctrines that these devils have taught out here, you know, for you to still have questions. Oh, I don't know, because over here it says, you know, Satan, you know, hell is real, you know. If you still thinking like that, then you just go crawl under a rock somewhere. Because there's nothing that we could do or say to convince you otherwise. Because you're stuck on that Babylonian juice of Esau. You know, it says that if our gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are lost, in whom the God of this world has blinded the minds of them which believe not. Which ultimately means that the Lord blinded you. And like Elder Pastor Charles said in the last video he did, you know, you women, you better start treading lightly, man, because, you know, at one point we was going hard on the sisters, and then, you know, you start easing up a little bit. Then these women start, you know, getting beside themselves, feeling themselves, you know, and start, you know, popping off on the comment boards, you know. Like he said, it's true. A shalom, you know, double honors, you know, shalom, you know, whatever the case is, and that's about it. You shouldn't be posting no scriptures. You shouldn't be trying to correct nobody. And some of you women, you go on different sites, you know, with these men that are having, you know, whatever bullshit they have going on, and you in there trying to cut them, putting scriptures. Well, you know, that's off. You shouldn't be doing that. Shut your ass up. Or you, because I've already blocked a couple of you. Coming in talking about, well, you know, I think just shut the fuck up. That's what's commanded you. Shut the fuck up and listen, or get the fuck out of here. There ain't no more time for no fucking games. We're getting too close to the end for this bullshit. That goddamn feminine spirit ain't gonna work here. You could take that shit to any them other groups that accept that shit. We're not accepting that shit here. We ain't accepting that shit from Esau or any of these fucking women out here. We definitely ain't gonna accept it from you. And you're supposed to know better. It says, we're gonna read on, verse 9. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels or his planes were cast out with him. All right? And the ones that deceive the whole world are these Edomites during the time of the Renaissance period. All right? That's when it happened. And like I said, when you research Revelation and you look at the great red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, it tells you what it is. And they ain't talking about the spiritual demon Satan and his angels. Because the spiritual demon Satan and his angels belong to the Most High, who created them. And they're in perfect order, unlike some of you clowns out here. Now let's go from there to St. John. Let's go to St. John, the 16th chapter. We got like 3 more scriptures, and then we're going to close it out. This is St. John, chapter 16, and verse 11. Of judgment, because the prince of this world is judged. And who is the prince of this world? Esau, which are the rulers of this particular world right now. And they're being judged by the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushua through the mouth of the prophets. That's why I said that the Lord is going to destroy them by the words of his mouth, and shall destroy them by the brightness of his coming. So first comes the sentencing, which we're in the sentencing stage of you devils now, and then comes the judgment, which is the destruction. And you losing your kingdom. And you international banking families, you will be the first to go into slavery. You will be the first to have the honor to get them chains slapped on you, them shackles and manacles, them yokes around your neck, around your waist. You like chaining motherfuckers up? You like putting them in prison? Well, guess what? You have that to look forward to. That's your future. You're going to go from riches to rags. You like locking people up and chaining them up, making them look like animals? Well, you're going to be chained up and you're going to look like an animal, because that's exactly what you are. You're a goddamn animal. A beast. So let's go from there to the book of Luke, chapter 10, verse 18. And he said unto them, this is Yahushua, I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven. Satan means adversary. You Edomites, you're going to fall from your lofty position. This position you hold in the world as the power of this earth, you're going to lose that when Yahushua comes back. Because every knee is going to bend to him, to his will. And the last scripture I have is St. John chapter 12, verse 31. It says, now, this is Yahushua speaking, now is the judgment of this world. Now shall the prince of this world be cast out. Because you're going to be cast out of your position. That's why it says that no place was found in heaven for them, pretty much. Because you're going to lose everything. You're going to lose your land. You're going to lose this world. You're going to go into slavery. And after 1,000 years of hardcore slavery, you're going to be totally wiped out, annihilated. That's it. And that's the only solution. Because there's no talking to you. There's no reasoning with you. You have the Bible, so there's no giving you instructions. Only thing for you is to put you in hardcore slavery, tell you what to do, because you don't know what to do. You've been given freedom, and the freedom that you have, you done destroyed the whole goddamn earth and the people and the substances on here to eat. So the only solution is for you to be told what to do, made to in subjection, put in captivity, and after that wiped out. Because you're a goddamn menace to your own self. You're nothing but a demonic robot that the Most High created to bring this chaos on the earth, so that the Lord can judge you and the Lord can bring punishments upon us for the time being. So you out of here, man. You are out of here. You are so out of here, man. So with that, I pray that your brothers have been edified, and to the next time I say shalom.